Cosmetology Qualifications Committee meeting is convening at 9:35 a.m. on Monday, January 12th, 2026. This meeting is being held in person and through Zoom video conference and is also being recorded. We're posted at the internet for public viewing, and I will now call roll. Amanda Hood.
Present.
Angelica Hamlet. Brianna Hutchins.
Here.
Elizabeth Rose.
Present.
Jen Fox. Jennifer Baldwin.
Here.
Jessica Hale.
Here.
Julie Weaver.
Here.
Kalina Ackelson.
Here.
Kat Chakaj Solis. Carrie Weed.
Yes. Morning.
Lindsay King.
Here.
Dan Pacheco.
Here.
Ray Sanchez.
Here.
Tammy Kennedy.
I'm here.
Teresa Strub.
Here.
Kaite Haruna. Noelle Johnson.
Here.
And Carmela Salvador Solano is not attending today. Yesenia Rojas. Michelle McMullen.
Here.
And Margaret Long.
Here.
Members, when you wish to speak, please state your last name for the record. Committee members are asked not to use the chat feature during meetings. The Health Licensing Office asks that individuals attending through Zoom keep their phones muted and cameras off during the entire meeting or until they're given an opportunity to comment during the public and interested parties feedback period, if indicated on the agenda. Public comments limited to matters listed on the meeting agenda or topics relevant to what this committee has authority to regulate. Public members wishing to speak, please sign in on the roster sheet available in the room or email Josh Page at josh.page@oha.oregon.gov and provide your first and last name. Everyone is asked to use appropriate language, manners, and protocols when conducting committee business. All right. So before we jump in to the last week's discussion, I just want to do a couple of reminders. So for the sake of public meeting laws and clarity of the recording, I think what we're going to have to do this time is make sure everyone states their name, and then I'll have to call on individuals, especially individuals that are online. That way we can keep things clear. So if someone does want to listen to this meeting, say maybe tomorrow or a week later, they can follow along and know who's talking. Okay, and then I think the next thing that we're going to be talking about is, again, just general terminology. So within the bill, as of right now, we are going to continue treating it as a training program. There is no specific mention of the word apprenticeship or any terms of, or any language regarding pay scale. It's something that we will dive into more, maybe a little bit more with our attorney to see what routes we have available. But as of right now, it's going to be treated as a training program. And then again, just to clarify, for HLO purposes, a certificate is an authorization to practice in a field of cosmetology. So we will, again, be referring to it as a certificate. I think the next good thing to talk about will be the intent of the bill. Get an idea of really what the legislators were meaning behind this, and I think that will help drive our conversation.
Yes.
Perfect.
Ask question, this is Sammy for the record. I'm just going to kind of walk through what it says, I'll walk through what we use to, when we're doing fact finding for the bill, when I'm looking at it, even from when it's in the legislature and I'm doing, say, a bill analysis, what those things are I'm looking at to like, ooh, what does that really mean? And if they don't define it here, what do they mean at the legislature, what are we gonna do over here administratively? So when they say nothing, sometimes it's a, you know, it could be a black hole. We don't really know what they meant, but, so that's where the intent comes in, and an attorney comes in, and they have a pretty set process for looking at things. So I think the first thing is kind of thinking in terms of terms. So there's exact terms. So for example, in your bill, it has under, what page is the bill?
Oh, sorry. In the packet, the bill is, for those of you online, it is starting on page 23 of the packet. For those in office, it's the last part of the packet.
So in section 2, 1C, big A, where it says, shall have held for at least 5 years an active certification in the field of practice which the practitioner intends to offer the supervision. So that 5 years, we can't change that to 3 years. It does say at least, so I think you could say more, but then you definitely can't say less. A better example is the 50 miles. So it can't be 40 miles, it can't be 60 miles. It has, the legislature says 50 miles is the number, and nobody therefore can change it. So when, I know there was some conversation at the last meeting where 148 miles from, school, it's like, this is what they said. Specific, and the attorneys are gonna go specific, and if they didn't want it to be specific, they would have made it not specific. Or they would have made it a smaller number or a larger number. So when I'm looking at these things and I say, I don't think that's gonna go the way you want, that's because I'm looking at it from that lens. Does that make sense? Okay, so in exact terms, there's a little bit more wiggle room. So actively working towards, so that's in section 2, 1, little a. The process for the HLO to issue a provisional certificate, including eligibility requirements, specifying that the holder of a provisional certificate shall be actively working towards holding the certificate. So there's a couple of things here that are in exact terms. There's the eligibility requirement, so that gives you some freedom to decide what those eligibility requirements are. They have listed some of them, but still a little bit of wiggle room. And then actively working towards, so what does that look like? Does that look like an attestation at renewal? Does that look like sending you training certificates? I don't know, and those are something where you guys are telling me, we want maybe this, or this, or this, and I'm writing them down. Those are the things I'm gonna go back to the attorney and say, here are all the things that the committee's kind of thought about, and here's why. And then she's gonna go back and do her process, which is much more in depth of looking at a lot of things that way. So, and you can kind of think of it as, this one is good when it's, what was I going to use as an example? So if there's terminology in a bill that said the person can use a weapon, as an exact term, what is a weapon? The committee could decide what a weapon is. So that's a little bit more easier to get your mind around. An inexact term is weapon. It could be a gun, it could be a knife, it could be a straw. So that's what actively working towards. Flexibility, freedom to give. They've given us a little bit of framework to know what to do, but not all of it. And the last one is delegated. So that's when it says the board shall adopt rules to do X. And that's in several places in the bill. And I'll just, so now we kind of have that framework. We're just gonna walk through the bill quickly. So in section 1, basically says that section 2 has been adopted into, it passed and adopted into ORS 690, which is organ revised statutes for cosmetology. So that's saying, okay, this is gonna go over there when this is all done. And we'll get, it goes into this big book, which we published in March. So that's what that And section 2 is kind of the meat and potatoes of the bill. So the board shall adopt rules to allow an individual who holds a professional certificate issued under this section to perform in a field of practice under the supervision of a practitioner who holds a certificate in the same field of practice and meets the requirements established under paragraph C of this subsection, and rules adopted under this subsection must establish. And then there's A, B, and C. So this is, what this is telling me is that we can license somebody with a professional certificate in a field of practice, and you must work under supervision of somebody who also holds a license in the same field of practice. But they must meet the eligibility requirements listed in C, subsection C. Which that lists what the supervisor has to be. They like to make this really confusing for you guys. But the rules shall adopt under this subsection must establish a process for HLO to issue the provisional certificate. So a way that we basically giving us application requirements on how we can issue it to the person. Specifying that the holder of the provisional certificate shall be actively working towards holding a certificate. So signature, saying that yes, they will be actively working towards this license, and then later in the bill, you guys will be able to set renewal requirements, how often they can renew, which will start to frame that whole consent I'm actively working towards. And then little b is a process to enable the practitioner to supervise the holder of provisional certificates. And then now we're to C, requirements for the practitioner to supervise the holder of a provisional certificate that must include, or not limited to, key phrase there, but not limited to, so open for interpretation, but generally when it says that, it's got to be something similar to what's coming next. So under C, requirements that the practitioner shall have held for at least 5 years an active certificate in the field of practice in which the practitioner intends to offer supervision and may not be subject to any current or pending disciplinary actions. So normally when we read including but not limited to, it needs to be similar to those things under big A and big B. So, but that's not always, but under this one, we're gonna ask about the background checks, if they're supervisor minors. That was one thing you guys wanted me to check on. Something that's open to some interpretation. And then moving to 2A, the applicant for a provisional certificate shall be a fee. And then that references back to HLO statutes, which list the fees that we can charge. The office may issue a personal certificate to perform a field of practice only if no school that offers the program of study in a field of practice is located within 50 miles of the applicant's residential address. So kind of in this scenario, it's, I read this as maybe there is a school that is within 50 miles, but they don't teach nails and you want to learn nails. So you could have to, you could. No, I didn't say that. I was thinking it still has to be 50 miles away, but I didn't.
Sounds like it. Yeah, goodbye. Tammy and Kennedy, this, it sounds like that is what they need. If the school only teaches hair and you want to do nails, you might.
Still have to be 50 miles away. Okay.
No school that offers a program of study in the field of practice is located. So if it's,
In the field study.
You see the That means
I-
it's probably a legal question there
it is a
somewhere.
little.
So I'll pull that one apart. So again, 50 miles, we can't change that, but there is. Number 3 is a provisional certificate issued in the section, may be renewed pursuant to rules adopted by the board, so it's freedom for the board to, reasonably set those requirements, and the legislature didn't give us, at least here, what that would look like. The holder of provisional certificate may perform only in the field of practice where the provisional certificate is issued, and may hold provisional certificate in more than one field of practice, so that's, they can have all four, or have one or two. Maybe they're more than one supervisor that teach different things. So it could be, well, any one of those things. I don't know if we want to do that. And then before the number of hours of supervised experience completed by the holder of a provisional certificate shall be credited an equal number toward the total number of educational hours required for issuance of a certificate. You want to give that with
This is Carrie Weed. I would guess that would probably equate to if the hair design program requires by the state 1,200 hours, then the provisional supervision would have to at least adhere to that 1,200 hours. Because each program of study has a specific hour requirement to it as issued by PEC.
I think my guess is that and I don't know why, but this doesn't seem logical, but just how I read it, is if Derek is in a training, under supervision and gets 500 hours in hair, that if he switches to a school, that 500 hours can't be treated as 250. It needs to be treated equal parts as 500 hours in school. But that doesn't seem logical in this circumstance. So I'm not sure.
Just as Pam Pacheco, it's all going to be determined if it's competency-based or hourly-based education.
No, I don't think so.
If it,
It would still have to be, I think it's still our. Well, it's procedures based then.
So an equal number towards the total number of educational hours required. Towards the total number of educational hours required. So meaning each program has educational hours that are required. So if they're transferring,
The number of hours of supervised experience completed by the holder of provisional certificate must be credited an equal number toward the total number of educational hours required for issuance of a certificate.
that means I'm taking it as if the program is 1,200 hours, then this is the credit, the equal number towards that program. Because do we still say that like hair design takes 1,200 hours to complete? Or are we still going by the HEC and Oregon Health Licensing rules of cosmetology?
No.
Would it be an hour from now?
That's what I think so, but I think that's also a discussion that I'll have. Question.
It's an hour from hour, but do you have what, the reference was? Because in most cases, sometimes they.
What's those references?
Yeah,
So if you turn to page.
I just want to see what it's.
So on page bottom of 3, section 5 is 690 ORS 690-046. So this is the requirements to get an actual practitioner certificate. And you'll see Big B has submit satisfactory evidence from a school, or if the applicant holds a provisional certificate issued in the subsection under supervision. So actually calling it two different things. So implying that it might be different. That's what I think.
this is Pam Pacheco. There's also a section here in A where it determines if they have any previous work credits, like the education or training.
previous from the military or substantially equivalent certification requirements.
Where are you at?
This is page 4 on A, about, right before halfway down.
There's lots of.
An applicant, the, uppercase A, not lowercase. The office determines that the applicant's education or training, including any education or training obtained in the military, is subsequently equivalent to the certification requirements described in subsection.
So you can't read big A without reading 2 and little a.
So would that be little a above or?
Yeah, so 2.
The office may waive
Mhm.
or part of the requirements described in subsection allows the applicant who meets all of the other requirements of subsection.
The examination if for an applicant who holds an active authorization issued in another state or territory of the United States, the office determines that the applicant's education and training, including any education and training in the military, is subsequently equivalent to the certification. So this is all in relation to people who don't hold an Oregon license. So these people licensed in another state or other training.
Other training in other states, applying to take the exam, right? This is for them who are wanting to take their exam. So is the office, Oregon Health Licensing, going to possibly offer previous work credits for taking an exam for the provisional certificate?
Exam is part of the requirement.
I don't know that I understand.
Yeah.
If they hold a license somewhere else, is that what you mean?
If
If we're only
somebody,
taking that into
well,
consideration.
if somebody holds a license somewhere else, they're just gonna apply for reciprocity, correct? But if somebody has some kind of previous work credit that is in another field, but may be applicable, like nursing, safety and sanitation, are they going to be able to use those previous work credits towards their education in the provisional certificate?
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
I don't see how they would do that.
So, Carrie Weed, quick question here. Like you were reading through section 5. It starts at the bottom of page 3. You're reading through section 5 or 690046. And then you go down to the big A of that says, complete the curriculum requirements in the field of practice for which certification is sought that are adopted by the Board of Cosmetology by rules and approved by the Health Licensing Office. So does that mean that they do have to adhere to the rules of the Board of Cosmetology as approved by Health Licensing Offices? Meaning, HEC has rules for getting a license, right? Oregon Health Licensing now has rules for getting a license. Does that mean that they have to adhere to those rules set forth by getting a license by both agencies?
I don't know what license. You mean the school license?
No. Practitioner's license.
I don't know what license HEC is.
Well, you have to also read B. Don't just stop at A, read B as well. So A is applying to people who are currently licensed, right? We're reading this thing as a whole. And then when you look at B, it says, or if the applicant holds a provisional certificate, this is what they also have to do. But the reason I
But it
was
says
asking.
and.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the thing about rules, right? You don't just take one part. You gotta keep reading because there's more to it. So the and is also subjective B. So you have little a and you have big A and B.
Yeah.
So those two go hand in hand. Now, after the and in subsection B, then.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yes. So it keeps going.
Okay.
But the reason I wanted to have a reference to this earlier is I didn't mean to jump ahead. I just wanted to know what the law said with regards to the reference. So if we wanted to go back and continue.
No, I think that was fine with me to go. That would be really the next place to go. And so basically what Big A is saying is that who you're under a provisional or you're in a school, you have to abide by whatever curriculum that the board's approved. Whatever that is, and in this situation, it's going to be a different thing than a curriculum that is done in the school. More of a training program.
And that's what we're here for. Yes. Do that.
This
Okay,
Tammy
just
Kennedy.
say and.
I just have a clarifying question. Heck is really not determining any of this anymore, right? They just certify the teachers. They're not doing any of the curriculum now. It's all health licensing. So Heck is kind of off the table.
Completely.
We're not worrying about what Heck thinks.
I mean, they don't even do the school curriculum. The board.
Right.
That's,
And, but that was recent, like that was last year, right?
But still.
Right, totally understandable, but they have the history of knowing and understanding what all that was. Now that it's come over to Oregon Health Licensing, you guys have control over it, absolutely. But this does say and. If you read through it, it says if the applicant is applying for certification to practice in these, they have to do A and B. So they have to complete the curriculum requirements in the field of practice as adopted by Oregon Health License.
They're gonna look different. For the school and for the provision. Because they could look exactly the same, but one's gonna be under a supervisor and one will be under a teacher. In the licensed school.
So the bill is kind of framing, this is Pam Pacheco, the bill is kind of framing that the hours are gonna be equal. That's what we kind of started this whole conversation with, is that
I
it's
mean,
going to
that's
be
how we
equal.
do other programs.
As in the advisory board, does that make sense to keep it equal in hours? Or if somebody's doing a provisional certificate, would they maybe need more hours in the salon environment instead of equal hours? Or are you considering doing, I don't think you can do less, but is it equal? Does it make sense to do equal hours? Or would there possibly be more hours needed or required or requested?
A couple thoughts. So our other programs have equal. If it's a body nursing school, equal to a body nursing supervisor. Electrology school equal to electrology supervisor. Other states, California, and Jared did this research, California, in Washington, that have apprenticeship programs and have like double the amount of hours.
The average, actually, that's not true. The
Well, they're
average is
just gonna
between
report
2,000 and
that, yeah.
3,000 hours, depending on the hair design, 2,000 hours, full cosmetology, 3,000 hours. And the success rate is very high.
No,
I've got paperwork for it, but,
I think we talked about it at the board.
Michelle?
Michelle McMillan here. Just back to the, on the first page of the bill, it says the number of hours supervised, number 4, we were talking about that. That statement just made me think that it's saying that, okay, I'm under a supervisor as the training program, and I shouldn't get credited more than what I'm being supervised. So if someone's supervising me for 10 hours during that one day, I shouldn't get more than that because it has to be directly under a supervisor. Is that what that's saying?
Where you at?
what page is it? What?
The first page.
First page.
I think it says both. I think it says you can't be less and it
Can't be more.
can't be more. Needs to be equal.
Yes, okay.
I view it more as transferring from
Yes.
training to a school or vice
Oh.
versa versus actually making the training program. I guess that's something we'll have to
Oh,
look into
yeah.
a little bit more.
I thought maybe that.
Maybe,
There.
yeah, I think it has to be hour for hour. It's what I.
But it should be, or I would think.
I don't know if it's somewhere historically, they've tried saying you only get half of an hour for under supervisor to move to school. I don't know how they reached that. It was not in those.
We're talking about. So, like I said, the way I read this is very, it really is very strict. and I think we shouldn't overthink it, because I don't think legislators overthink this thing. But it is equal number of hours towards the required total amount. So say that, correct me if I'm wrong, but if this individual started the program, the training supervision thing, and they decide, you know what, I think this whole independent thing is not for me, and I want to go to more of a school. At that point, those hours need to translate. Whatever they've spent need to equate to the same hour for hour. Now, the other question I wanted, just a point of thought or clarification, was that in most cases, what I have seen is if somebody went to a school and they brought those hours, there's a way that sometimes it's converted into training hours, where maybe 1 credit hour at a school equates to 10 hours of training or cosmet or what have you. So just food for thought. But in this instance, without bringing any outside influence into it, my understanding of the words here as it states is that you get an hour for an hour. It has to equate to the same thing.
And did you have something?
I think that circling back once again, I think if we kind of decide what does the hours look like? Shall we do hour per hour, or do we want more? Because when you get into this whole supervisor thing, the supervisor has to be able to teach the apprentice, the student, on all of the things that Oregon Health Licensing wants them to have. And they have to have a framework on how many hours of safety and sanitation do they need? How many hours of haircutting do they need? And if somebody does like this scenario indicates, if they stop midstream and go somewhere else, how are you going to know what those hours were for? You have to have framework on what is required. So we've got a lot of work to do to make this thing work.
We have
If-
all that laid out today.
You what?
We have all that laid out today.
Oh, you do have that laid out, so you've got the okay,
We've got
good.
some visual references that I think will help guide the
Okay.
conversation.
But would we agree or disagree that the hours, for the sake of this section right here, would it be viable to say equal hours for the time they spent or not?
What makes it not equal though? What makes it not equal? Are you saying that?
I'm not
No,
saying it's
no.
not-
I'm just throwing a question for all of us. What makes it not equal? For example, so basically, if I'm sitting with somebody and I'm training and I get an hour for that training, and you are in school, you're training, you get an hour, is it not valuable at the same level? Are you trying to give the value to if you're being in the presence of an instructor at a school versus being in the presence of a practitioner at a salon? Is it not weighed the same? Is the question I'm throwing out.
This is Carrie Weed. My rebuttal to that is, you don't know. Because if somebody is in a salon environment and you're under supervision for 100 hours, you could be sweeping hair, you could be cleaning toilets, you could be answering the phone. There's no framework to say what they're supposed to be doing in that supervision.
Yeah.
So at a
But
school,
but my understanding of this group, yes, is that we're setting the
Can you
framework.
finish the comment?
That's what you guys are gonna be doing in these meetings.
is creating the framework.
Yes.
So we are creating the curriculum structure that these supervisors need to
Training
present.
That's right, yes,
present.
yes.
That's a big difference, is because if, then them going in and just being there and not knowing what they're doing. They have, because we have to track what they're doing, but if there's a framework that they're going through and they're going through their infection control and their theory and their hands-on, is it haircutting, is it coloring, is it chemicals? If there's a structure for it, if they transfer from a supervision program to a school, and this is what we're asking, right? Does that framework and structure come with it? Because we put it under an absolute structure. What are you going through? What's the progress of it? Have you gone, into haircutting? Have you not had haircutting yet? So you can't just say it's hour for hour, because if somebody in a supervision program, if somebody in a supervision program starts with coloring first, right? We could go really
No,
deep.
but I think maybe there's a
We- we will.
misunderstanding, because I thought we were all under the impression that we're here to set that framework. And that's where I'm coming from, is that we are going to be setting that framework for this thing. So the hour for an hour is gonna be based on the framework that we put together, and that's the whole purpose of this committee. At least that's what was my understanding coming in.
Yeah, we're not just gonna issue a provisional license to someone and be like, good luck, figure it out on your own. We're gonna have a structured thing that they will have to follow in order to get competent and pass the exams.
Yeah, no, I thought we were all on the same understanding that that's what we're here for. So I'm talking from that perspective, that when we put that framework together, those hours will equate to the same hours as being in the school.
Understandable, but we didn't come to that conclusion last week.
But that's what this whole committee is about.
We're working on a fun meeting. We actually got far, we dissected what in the law we didn't understand, right? What in the law we didn't understand, what we need to ask, so in order to make this framework, we need to have the questions answered.
That's
And it sounds like
That's
we
what
may
this
even have
is
more
about.
questions
Yeah.
asked. So we did do a lot of work last time, we just didn't do the framework work.
Yeah, more general information gathering. But I think also it's important to kind of focus on the intent of this bill and jump in at any time. But based on the testimony and the hearings from the actual senators that brought the bill forward, it's really about reducing the barrier to access and allowing individuals who live 50 miles or more away from the school to get that same educational opportunity.
Right.
So my understanding is that the intent is to make them comparable versus a training like, well, just because it's not a school, you have to do 8,000 more hours because it's not a formal education center. So that's my understanding. So I think if we kind of use that moving forward for the training program, that we can steal a lot of things from the current curriculum and model it after that. I think that would be an avenue
Yeah.
we should go. But if anyone wants to jump in. Okay, so I think go ahead, Carrie.
I wanted to kind of go back to what you said there, the intent of this bill. Do we know where this, like, how this was created? Do we know the history of this bill? Who brought it to forth, what the intention was it? Like, do we know any of that?
This was the Sammy, so, Senator Smith, I believe, out of Coos Bay, he got Representative Levy and basically created the framework on their own,
Representative from where did you say?
Coos Bay,
No, but you said.
Representative Levy.
Levy, Levy. And they created the framework, they did let us weigh in on some of the information of it, so it was workable. Like adding, that we had them add some requirements from supervision. We had them tie the provisional certificate back to getting, a regular certificate, like proceed to be married, right, a certificate. Triple back fees, things that they wouldn't know to do. But that's, I mean, it wasn't brought by a practitioner, it was brought by actual legislators, which in my experience, then usually you don't get that. Usually it's brought by constituent base to a legislator saying, we want this. But that wasn't. It's really fair.
It seemed to be part of the conservancies
Yeah.
having trouble finding a place to get there again.
Information.
Thank you for that background. I really appreciate it. It really
Yeah.
kind of helps you understand a little bit more.
Oh, everybody who sponsored the bill is right here. On the top, Levy and DB Smith, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and they actually testify. So if you go to, legislative website, you click on those hearings, you can hear them what they have to say. Pretty short, there, none of them are very. And there wasn't very much written that too.
Okay, so I think now it might be a good opportunity to kind of provide a visual reference to help guide these conversations. So let me share my screen. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that. And keep in mind, these are all draft examples. just a visual reference. A lot of the stuff can be changed. We can add stuff, we can move it around. So this is basically just a simple guide to the overall cosmetology provisional certification process. So the initial step is someone who's interested in this field and lives more than 50 miles away. They are going to first need to find a supervisor. And so under this, we talk about some of the requirements that we feel a supervisor might need to have. And so, for example, in the bill, it lists a couple specific ones. But as a committee, if you have recommendations of additional requirements that a supervisor needs to hold, then we can obviously talk about that. Then after an individual has obtained a supervisor, they need to get their provisional certificate. So this outlines potential requirements, draft requirements that someone would need to complete in order to obtain a provisional certificate. So the IDs, things like that, that's pretty standard. But some of the things that you talked about last time, having the individual complete a bloodborne pathogens training, proof of the individual completing an approved safety and sanitation training module, and then they would have to pay all application and certification or licensing fees. After they've submitted a completed application, they will get the okay to start their training. So once they receive verification from HLO, or once they receive their certificate, then they can start the training. And things in yellow are things that we still have questions about, so you can glaze over that. But part of their training, which we still have yet to determine, they will have to complete all of those training requirements. And then when the individual is done with the training and they want to apply for their practitioner certification, this is the steps that they will need to take. And then they have to take the required examinations as well. So once they've done all of those things, then they can obtain their practitioner certification. So does anyone have any general questions about this?
This is Carrie Weed. Just a quick question. It kind of came up when you were listing it out. It said, they choose their supervisor. Is there going to be somewhere that they can go on to a site that's a Oregon Health Licensing and look up a registered supervisor? If they start down this rabbit hole and they're like, you know what, I want to become a hair designer, but I don't live anywhere near a school. Can they, and they're not going to walk into a salon and just say, hey, are you a supervisor? Is there going to be an area where they can say, I'd like to be a hair designer and I need to find out who in my area is a registered supervisor? Is that going to be a thing?
It could be. We do have it for body piercing electrology supervisors.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is it's a pretty short list and it's a pretty easy list to manage.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that we can definitely consider as an option for this. The only problem or concern that we have as of right now is we don't know how many supervisors there's going to be.
Right.
And to maintain that list, get updated every single day, that's a challenge. So it's possible that we could do kind of a running list, and then it would be up to the applicant to pick someone on the list and confirm that they're actually still a valid supervisor and that they're still willing to supervise.
And do these supervisors have to be registered?
They will have to. Well, the idea we're thinking is apply. So there'll be an supervisor application.
Okay.
Typically, there's no fee involved with that. It's just, hey, I meet all the requirements. I want to do this. They submit it to us. We approve them. So if that's the route that we go, then we could add someone like that to a list and have it on our website.
You just wouldn't want somebody to go into a salon and say, oh, are you a registered supervisor? And the salon owner says, yes, I am. And then they go through this whole process and then they get in for, say, 100 hours or so. And all of a sudden it comes back, no, you're not a registered supervisor. You're not really affiliated with the program. And then they've completed these hours under false pretenses. I don't know, I think.
Yes, we would verify that prior to the individual receiving training. So on the application, let me pull that up. So on the application, this is for an individual who wants to obtain a provisional certificate. So again, a lot of this is boilerplate. It's found on all of our applications. And then here's where we get into the meat and potatoes. So this would talk about actual specific requirements for this person or this type of certification. So one of the things would be submit a completed declaration of responsibility form. And that, let's see, right here. So this will indicate to us the provisionals information as well as supervisor's information. And we would verify that prior to issuing that provisional certificate to that individual. So if you look down, it has, again, they would, basically for the supervisor, they just check a box saying, yes, I've completed the application. I'm good to go as a supervisor, but we would verify that on our end. So it's not just a trust me kind of thing.
Yeah, okay.
And then if we scroll down, there's more information as to kind of like the general things that as a supervisor, I'm agreeing to do this, this, and this. And again, we can change all this, we can add it, whatever floats your guys' boat, we can do that. So that would be the general process. And then this is just something I put together, again, visual reference. I try to model it similarly after the transcript, cosmetology transcript. And the reason I did that is for an individual who may be transferring from a training to a school, I think it's just kind of easier for a school to go back and forth, be able to just transfer those hours. So I guess it goes back to the training. I know before you guys had mentioned that there was concerns of a supervisor not being maybe fully up to speed on all the theory areas that provisional should be learning about. So there are options. A couple of things that we had talked about and are still exploring, so nothing is concrete yet, is potentially requiring them to take Milady Pivot Point training, textbook chapter tests, or whatever you guys require. The other option is that we at HLO can put together some sort of training modules on these types of categories. So similar to natural hair care, an individual takes that training module online, they get a certificate of completion, that's their education for that. Something that we can do here in office, so those areas that, like you said, my supervisor hasn't done any training in microbiology in 20 years, I don't feel comfortable with them having that one-on-one. They can take the training again through whichever route we figure out is going to be the best. So whether it's the lady or something that we create here, I think that could kind of cover the theory portion of things. And then this would indicate more, this area up here would indicate more of the theory hours that's doing more of the hands-on experience. And then just again, this would be a more detailed version of the practical training logs. Again, we can organize it however you want, but just simply indicating, hey, on this date, we spent 2 hours learning about haircutting. And then the supervisor or anyone could put notes saying, strengths in this, weaknesses in this, next time let's work on that kind of thing.
This is Pam Pacheco. One thing I definitely would encourage you to think about is you have observed, but you also want to do practical assessments. So you're not just watching them do it, but you're actually seeing them do it instead of the apprentice just watching.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation.
And that would also come into the procedure part where they'd be doing the actual procedures. This is more of, hey, I'm sitting here watching you hands-on, visually learning, but we can incorporate that into this as well. Make note of that.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
It's
Julie,
about-
go ahead.
When you were showing the rubric for the, well, not rubric, but the theory end of it, what kind of test security do you imagine would be in place so that we know the person who is taking the test is actually the person that's supposed to be taking the test?
Well, I guess that would decide on what sort of tests we end up going with. If it's something that's done through Pivot Point or Milady, that's something that we can't really control. There are other options potentially down the road. Our testing system.
Is this to get?
I think she's talking about the theory testing. Where did I find that?
Well, I guess,
Oops, hold
is
on.
this to get a provisional or after they've completed provisional and they're trying to get a road license?
I think we're talking about the supervisor.
Or we're talking about
The apprentice and the supervisor. So the apprentice, we want to ensure that the apprentice is not cheating on their theoretical hours. It would be under the supervisor to manage that, right?
this is Sammy. what Julie asked is who would be monitoring the test? So my question is, are we talking, is this about the person who's applying to get the provisional certificate or the person who's completed all their provisional and they're trying to get the real practitioner?
My question was regarding, at whatever point the provisional certificate holder is learning the theory and completing the assignments and then taking the tests, where is the test security there? I mean, I suppose ultimately when they take, if they haven't been honest, and it will be reflected in the licensure test that they take, but, or the certificate test, whatever it is, however you want to word it. However, I don't want to create an extra, and I don't even know how realistic this is, if it's just me thinking too hard on this, but if someone has the opportunity to be dishonest, it'll catch up to them when they go to become fully certified. So, I don't know if we need test security along the way or not, but I just threw it out there.
And this is just an example, so you don't have to make a provisional certificate holder take these exams. It's just an option. I was just trying to think of some sort of way that we could cover theory, maybe outside of the training, away from the supervisor, but again, that's all up for discussion.
This is Sammy. So on our other programs, the theory is done in conjunction with procedures and all of that in the place where they're being supervised. It's not separate. It's not a different thing. I think it's different for hearing aid, but for piercing and tattooing and electrology, it's all done. There's nothing separate. All right there. No separate program for theory. So and that seems to be working.
I guess I have a question. Is there any school representative here from a competency-based school?
I am. This is Teresa.
Hey, Teresa, I was just kind of curious how you guys handle the theory portion versus, like an hourly school.
So we have our freshman modules where we do cover so say we're in aesthetics, we'll do the theory on skin diseases and disorders in conjunction with skin analysis in our freshman portions. So those take up a certain time period, but then once they reach on the salon floor, their theories and their self-study to pass their remaining examinations are on the student's responsibility themselves to do. We do provide theory classes if they're needing additional support though.
And then just to clarify, you said the freshmen, they complete modules. Are those modules that your school has put together, or are they from a textbook?
So we go through Milady and we do the modules based off of the Milady chapters, yes.
This is Sammy, maybe to answer Teresa, the questions about the exams, because Julie, I don't think in this situation that HLO nor the board would be monitoring or asking for what those passing scores look like. That was
Okay.
within your program, so I was not exactly sure where we were at, but Derek has now brought me up to speed, and I don't think so. That wouldn't be monitored.
Okay. I'm okay with that. I was just curious.
Question.
So this is Tammy Kennedy, and I kind of brought this up last week. I think that are they not going to the supervisor, are they not going to be submitting a transcript when they are ready to go and test? Because we are required as a school to give their test score average at the end when they take their baby boards or their final exams. Those are all recorded on a transcript. Are we doing that or we're not? I guess I'm confused about that.
Well, that's going to be up to you guys. So what you would submit instead of a transcript would be a certificate of training. So basically like this. And again, this kind of area down below is modeled after the current transcript. So it can definitely indicate all the same areas. It just essentially wouldn't be called a transcript because it's not called a school. But if you guys require, say, we do want them to take chapter tests, then that's something that we could put on the transcript and or on the certificate of completion, and the supervisor would have to indicate those scores.
This is Tina has something.
Gary, go ahead.
What was that about, Tina?
No.
Oh. This is Carrie Weed. I have a couple of questions of that for Teresa, kind of going along with this as well too, is on a competency-based school, they still go through the theory of, now, do they do it in a classroom setting, or is it self-taught that they have to go through their own book? But there's a framework for it, correct?
Correct.
Procedures.
So, but theory and procedures are different.
Right, they don't have theory in their rules, in their articles.
But that was a question that was asked to Teresa, as it was about their that theory and foundation. And she said they do have modules for it, correct? So those modules that they're going through, are those in person? Are they in a classroom? This is kind of my question to Teresa. Are they in person? Are they in the classroom? Are they self-paced? What does a competency-based school do for that theory portion?
Well, they're not required to do that. They're required to do certain procedures.
No, I understand that, but my question to Teresa was when Derek asked the question, how do they do it? And she said that they went through the modules. My question on her module, of the modules that they do, are they just have to do it at home and come back and know it? Do they have classroom time for it? Do they have, like, how do they do that theory portion of it on a competency-based school? Because like you're saying, it's not required, but they do it.
Well, that's cool.
Can you hear me?
Tina's next. I don't have a while.
Yeah, go ahead, Tina.
No, this is Teresa. So our freshman modules, they are in person in class. So from their whole foundations of aesthetics, we are covering the chapter topics in the freshman class before they take the exams for their freshman class. Once they reach the salon floor where they're working on their hands-on, we do provide theory classes for a foundational support for students who need it, but to get themselves through their microbiology chapters, that is self-paced through working through workbooks and reading their textbooks to pass those tests. But we do have an option of in-person theory for them for support.
So it's not required, but they offer that because they see the value of getting a specific direction on theory.
I think that's what this community is saying.
Some students need additional support for their book work, where others can manage self-directed, is my answer to that.
Okay, thank you.
Tina?
Yeah, this is Tina. I noticed that on that certificate of training that you didn't have a practical at the bottom. Are you going to add a practical for these individuals in training?
Examples.
Yeah, these are just examples, and that's something that the committee that we will be talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so kind of going back, talking about a framework for the supervisor. Again, this is something I just put together using the curriculum, but general outline of required hours, and then down below is more of a training outline. So again, this is taken strictly from the curriculum, but it does give a more detailed plan, more items, more things more specifics that the trainer, the supervisor can use during the training. So again, that's just another option.
This is Carrie, but that's recommended, not required. Is that what we're at?
Well, that's what we're going to determine. Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess jumping back into the conversation, where do you guys want to start? Because we kind of went all over the place last time, and
It's on you.
I would love to try to narrow some things down instead of taking a question and it goes off into all these different things. Back to the hours, are we going to say that the hours are equal and not change them?
That's up to you.
I have a question, Michelle, here. I think so. I think it should be kind of like what she was saying. It should be equal of value. Because if I go, I mean, this is just my personal, if I go somewhere, I work under someone at a salon, I'm working, I mean, that's time spent. So I would expect that time that I spent would be as valuable as the time that I spent at school. So I think it would be, in all fairness, for everyone to equal out those hours.
Okay, so this is Pam Pacheco. My only concern with that is that if somebody is in a salon and they're sweeping hair, answering the phone, and cleaning the toilet, they're wanting equal compensation for that time frame, but they're not getting any education. So,
I understand,
so is it possible that maybe there should be additional hours needed as opposed to just equal? If you break it down, you think about it. I just open that up for discussion because typically when you have an apprentice program, a training program, you have more hours, not less by all means.
This is Tammy Kennedy, and my understanding, Sammy, is that if it's in this rule, we can't really just change it because we don't like it. It's literally on the first page, it says they're equal, so I feel like they need to be equal. I think that's a supervisor issue more than it is, because there could be any school that somebody could just sweep and clean toilets all day and not doing anything.
Yeah.
But I think that is more speaks to this supervisor than it does student, and if you don't pick a good supervisor, then you've got a problem.
You're gonna know it pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I think that we have to go by what the rule says, and it says it's equal, so I don't think we can change that, can we?
I think it's where I would start, and if along the way I find out that it can be different, then I will let you know, but I think that's a fair assessment.
This is Carrie. One thing that kind of comes up to that too is even if you are transferring, a student's transferring from another establishment, you still have observations that you can do. So if somebody's transferring in, you say, well, you've got 300 hours, I would like you to come in and do a haircut. Now, you can create those within where you're at. So they might have 300 hours, but those 300 hours are only in haircutting, but they demo that they have great haircutting, but they don't know anything about chemical color. But they still get those 300 hours for haircutting so I think it goes to the transferring portion of it and not the legitimacy of the hours.
So folks online, what are some of your thoughts in regards to making the requirements similar from the curriculum to the training program?
I think it's a good idea to have them the same hours, and with the concern for the, what are they doing during those hours? Maybe a limitation can be put, because in school, all students still do sanitation at the end of the day, right? So, for every hour they work, they can only have, or excuse me, for every hour they're supervised, they can only do a certain amount of time of sanitation. So if they're there, that's just the first thing that popped into my head as far as my concern is, especially in isolated communities, is a supervisor that would take advantage of the provisional certificate holder. So it really needs to focus on skills and not cleaning or answering phones. All those soft skills have their place, but anyway, that's what I was thinking.
By taking advantage, you mean letting the provisional, like I said, sweep, mop, do all those things that help the business, but isn't specifically helping them get educated?
Right. And when I was in school, and I assume it's the same way, is we were there 8 hours and we had about 15 minutes worth of sanitation at the end of the day. We didn't answer phones. We didn't, there was things we didn't do, but that was a long time ago. I don't know what the standards are now.
Julie, no, you have a very good point, and I think that needs to be something that we're all thinking about. Is that sanitation is definitely part of it. And you laid out here, and I think we need to look at the examples you're giving here. It could be broken up. So even if this individual is there cleaning bathroom and what have you, they still have to complete so many hours of this or so many hours of that. Without which you cannot get the certificate. So, and again, I think that's what we're going to determine how many hours of this. So if that person wants to clean the bathroom all day long, all week, they still have to meet blah, 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 blah. And that's what we are more interested in, is setting those requirements for this individual.
Yeah, and like we said, once we work on more of a detailed plan, we can start incorporating those types of things that will have a clear path that someone needs to follow, not just whatever the supervisor feels like they should do today, that's what they're gonna do. So I think that's another way we can avoid a lot of hours being spent on things like that.
Yes, and should we sort of decide, should we start with the supervisor requirement and then we work our way to the next one? So I feel like we're just going, let's just pick one and start carving out things so that we can be done with it and move to the next week.
Okay, so let me scroll back to my notes from last week.
This is Carrie Weed. I love that idea. Let's start there because I think it should be an honor to be a supervisor. I think there should be some commitment to it because this is you're taking somebody's career in as a guidance and a mentor, and there should really be some. I think there should be more responsibility and requirements on the supervisor than there is the student, because of everything that we have put in our career to train these people. They have spent a lot of time and energy on it, but they might be really good in one area and not so good in another area. So I think we need to have, building this framework, I think we need to have more emphasis on what the requirements for the supervisor are and this framework that they follow, because it matters. This is the integrity of our industry. This is the safety and sanitation. This is the foundation of our future. And if we skimp and if we cut corners on it, it's gonna bite us in the ass down the road.
I agree 100%, Carrie. And not only is it the career, but the supervisor is going to charge. And a person invests thousands of dollars and then they get this half-assed training from a half-assed supervisor. There's a lot of implications there. So this isn't a quick training program. It's rather involved and has very, a
This is
huge
Sandy, so
investment.
I think maintaining, like, okay, so what do you want those requirements to be? We could say, throw out there, and keeping in mind what requirements are for other the teachers at schools. Keep in mind what the bill already has in it. So it already has 5 years of licensing with no current or disciplinary action. So it needs to be similar to those items. But I think Margaret is next.
Go ahead, Margaret.
Well, I agree with everybody that we shouldn't lower our standards. However, I've been a salon owner, I've been a creative director, and I've also worked in schools. And there are schools that have very low standards, and they're not getting this hands-on opportunity like they're going to receive in a apprentice type environment. So I think we need to appreciate the differences in these two environments, because working on doll heads all day and clicking off modules that you've completed does not give you that same hands-on right there in the environment. One of the biggest things that students loved receiving from me, because I worked in the field for so long, was the consultation. There was nothing in the book work like that. So I think we have to have this balance and keep in mind that there's two opportunities: one, to receive this theory via modules and click it off, we did it, and then we're going to go up to state board and get our license. But also they're going to get, if they get the right supervisor, provided they do, and we give them a good framework, the supervisor, a good framework, they're getting this wonderful opportunity of hands-on, and that's very valuable. Apprenticeship type situations and craft guilds have been around for centuries, and they're very successful if done right.
Just as a point of reference, the requirements for someone to become a standard body piercing supervisor: hold an active license, no pending or disciplinary actions, be actively practicing for at least 2 out of the last 5 years, no disciplinary actions, proof of current CPR, first aid, and proof of current bloodborne pathogens. So that's what is currently required to become a body piercing supervisor. And again, I will say we do get very few complaints regarding the training process. And a lot of the individuals that may have signed up at one point and aren't really into it, they back off. So they tend to weed themselves out. And again, every profession, you're going to have people that aren't going to follow the rules, whether it's training or in school. Unfortunately, that's just part of the process. So we really want to focus on the bulk of the people and what's going to work for them.
This is Pam Pacheco. You've laid out a training program format that is very logical. I think if a supervisor followed these things, that's going to give them the things that they need. Yes, there's theory where the student in large part will need to be self-paced. They're going to need to go through their basic understanding from a book, from wherever, of safety, sanitation, how to do a haircut, all that kind of stuff. And then the supervisor reaffirms that information by weekly tests or monthly tests or whatever. And then they go into the practical part of it. But a laid out program of which you kind of got some framework is already there. It's totally workable.
So I guess first, we want to bump on the training or still work on the supervisor requirements? Okay, so as of right now, it's current supervisor requirements, other than the ones outlined in the bill, was the fingerprinting. That was one thing that all seemed to agree on. Other things thrown around were possible training modules, some sort of additional training that gets them up to speed to be a supervisor. Other option was potentially make them retake the laws and rules and knowledge exams. So that's kind of the bulk of what we talked about last time, but
We also talked about background checks for supervisors.
yeah, we got that on the list.
And that's for all supervising anyone, whether they're a minor or not. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else have suggestions, recommendations of what a supervisor needs to complete in order to become a supervisor?
The one thing in the bill said 5 years, licensed for 5 years. And I thought it should be, and this is from my own experience, but I thought it should be like a limitation, like 5 out of the last 6 years or 5 out of the last 7 years or something like that. And I only say that because I've become relicensed. I've been relicensed for a year, but my previous licensure was over 20 years ago, and I have 15 years there. So I would, and I hate to say this out loud where everybody can hear me, but I don't know if I would, it would be appropriate for me to be a supervisor at this point in my career. So just something to think about.
So potentially you're recommending making that 5-year requirement maybe 5 out of the last 7, 5 out of the last 10 years?
I would say 6 or 7 or whatever, if everybody else agrees, that is. And just get some feedback. I've never done hair, so I don't know. I just know that I'm very rusty relative to what I used to be, and things do tend to change the entire profession changed from the time that I left it to the time I got relicensed. And anyway, just an idea.
Know that? Go ahead, Tammy.
Karen has had her hand up for a while,
Oh, Karen, go ahead.
and then I do have something to say.
Karen, can you hear us?
Yes, sorry. This is Karen Chambers with the Hack. And what I was going to ask was maybe more related to training than supervisor qualifications, but then I thought maybe it could help inform what the supervisor might need. You had gone over what the supervisor requirements for like piercing, body piercing would be, but I'm curious maybe in electrology, what does the I mean, how do you handle the training? Maybe for body piercing, I'm not sure if there's like set like curricular requirements for body piercing, but for electrology, um, how does that training look? How do you handle it in those programs, which also have a practical component? What are the supervisors responsible for, or are the participants getting that portion on their own, like maybe online, and then they come to the supervisor? I don't know if that would be helpful, but I was interested in how that works in the other programs that you operate in this same kind of way.
Yeah, so currently with electrology, the training and the curriculum are essentially the exact same thing. The reason being is there's very few electrology schools in Oregon, and then eventually they all closed. So no one in Oregon could get the education to receive an electrology license. So essentially to pivot, what they did was take that curriculum and turn it into a training program. What that trainer does is they have to meet certain requirements, and they use essentially the same outline as the curriculum to guide them through that training process. And then the supervisor or trainer will also perform the practical procedure with the training. They will document that on the training plan.
So they're basically responsible for the whole thing, for ensuring that the student or the participant gets everything.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
With the supervisor required.
Yeah.
We keep jumping around.
No, but this is Carrie Wheat. That's a good question that Karen brings up. So then what are the requirements of the electrology program for the supervisor?
Pull that up.
Because if they're following the same kind of like a curriculum module, a framework, do they have to do any pre-information, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. The requirements clean up.
So here's the application for someone to complete if they want to become an electrology supervisor.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then I can show you some more information with the actual training packet.
If they have to submit, this is the, the form of an active electrology license, no current, and then disciplinary action, a 7-minute actively practicing electrology for at least 2 years for the date of application. And that's what they have in rule. And I think that's pretty much lines up with that. And then there's the supervision part.
Yeah.
This is Tammy Kennedy, and in the 5-year requirement, the way I read this shall have held for at least 5 years an active certificate. So I think getting into the 6 or the 7 or the 10, I think 5 years current. So not like 5 years ago, it's currently for 5 years. That's how I read that requirement.
For the date of application.
Right. So, yeah, I could see somebody doing it for 20 years, taking a break and coming back or whatever, but it makes it sound to me like it needs to be in the last current 5 years. Kind of like that said 2 years.
Yeah. This is Carrie Lee. Absolutely. I think maybe we do need to make some clarification on that. because we don't want it to be interpreted a different way. Somebody who has been in the industry for 20 years, but they were active, 10 years ago, and so they're not up. Somebody just all of a sudden says, oh, well, this is a great training opportunity I can do and have some income on it, but they haven't been active behind the chair. I think that's a really good point, is just to clarify it so there's no gray area. But one thing that kind of springs to mind for the requirements of a supervisor is verification of facility. Right, because we have to register for a facility license within Oregon Health Licensing. So they have to, wouldn't they have to have an active facility license that kind of, am I incorrect here? Everybody's gotta have an active.
That comes into play, that makes sense.
Right, so you gotta kind of verify where they're at.
This is Sammy.
Yeah.
Just since they have to work under a practitioner who holds a license state field practice, wherever that person can practice, they can practice. So maybe they'll do freelance. And they could go and, train with them with their freelance license. Maybe they work they're independent contractors and they work in 5 different facilities. So the trainee can follow them around all 5 different facilities. So I don't think you can limit it to an active facility because I think it's broader than that.
This is Carrie Weed. I think we need to specify that, because if you need to know where they're at in order to do an inspection. I mean, as any salon, we have a license, there's a facility license so that you can come in and check, and you're supposed to list who is working at this facility, right? So if this person is being a supervisor, maybe they're a freelance wedding specialist. And so this student is going around with them. There still has to be some verification of where they're at that you can follow up with, just like if a complaint came in for Oregon Health Licensing and they say, oh, I was just down at the salon and they're saying that there's a supervisor thing, but here's my complaint of what's going on. Okay, Oregon Health Licensing gets complaints of unlicensed, not following regulations and that kind of stuff. I would imagine that you would want to know where these supervisors are at facility-wise so that you can follow up on if there's complaints and that kind of stuff.
We do have on the certificate of training form an option to include the facility information. So that would be where we can verify facility number, the address, that type of stuff.
My recommendation is that it's a verified facility. That it's not just, okay, it's recommended to put down there, but that then when it comes in, it is verified.
This is Sammy. Is this for a supervisor?
Yes, supervisor requirements.
Supervisor to be required to put on their
Application
where
they are at.
Okay.
And
I think they already have to do that under being commissioner. They have to notify us.
But it getting done and it getting verified. I mean, I'm just saying there's a.
I mean, what do you mean by verified? Do you want us to call? What do you mean by verified?
Just verify that they have an active facility license?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who has that?
The supervisor.
Supervisor may not be a facility.
But they have to list where they're behind the chair at.
Just that there is an active facility somewhere.
That
with that name and
that they are either they have registered their salon as an active facility, or that they are a booth renter within an active facility license.
Okay, yeah, well, yeah.
Aren't all hair
I
designers
just want you
supposed
to
to
understand, we're not calling and verifying. We're not sending you.
No, but
We're gonna look
but
and-
if a complaint comes in, you have to be able
We're
to.
gonna go with their. We're start. Work that. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, independent contractors do not tell us where they work, 100%. It was 17 years ago that they worked in X facility, and we don't know where they're at. So we're gonna always start with their home address, what they have in our database, and then see where it goes from there. That's, if they don't ever. Hopefully an inspector gets fined them and fixes it, but this one's.
So I guess that's kind of my point, Carrie, that's my point, is if there's a program like this, I would hope that it's not, oh, we're trying to find them. I believe that if you are an active supervisor, you should have a place that you can be found at. So that facility license, whether that's they hold it or they're an independent contractor listed under that facility license.
They don't work in the active.
Then that has to be stated on an application that they're freelance and they're following this person around.
Okay, so I have an idea.
Margaret has her hand up.
Go ahead, Margaret.
Well, I was wanting some clarification. Are you proposing like a state inspector goes out and looks at the facility, or is this just some written, something written?
Oh, I know what you mean, absolutely. But you have to be able to.
So that's what you're proposing. I'm just trying to clarify, that's all.
My clarification is that they don't have to go out and physically see it, but they have to state where they can be found.
Require a brick and mortar facility. Just have that as a requirement.
Well, I have that on the list, but I don't think you can do that. I'm just gonna, that's my 2 cents as far as what the bill says. They want to limit it to active facility, they would say that. So I don't think an attorney's gonna say, yeah, you come up, but maybe they will. I've been wrong many times, but it is on the list of questions from us.
It sounds like we want to have something on there, on that application, that they provide an address.
It is on there.
Yes,
It
I
is.
see.
Yeah, I'm sorry, this is not supervisor application, but
So put something on that says address of where you work at. And that should help with that part of it.
Okay.
Because we just want to know that there's an address.
There's an address, but it's listed as a facility.
Correct, that's.
It's got, correct.
Yes.
It's got to be a legally registered facility. I think.
Tammy, I think you have several things that we're going to ask if they're working in the facility, where is it? If they own it, what's the network? And maybe they're an independent contractor, but where do they work? Or are they paid? Yes, we're gonna want that number, move on.
Yeah, we're gonna check it out. But that's a good idea. We have a checkbox if they're freelance.
Yeah,
and
we'll
check
write
out
the
their-
number down.
Yes, next to it. And then, and we tie it, because we're gonna tie it. Oh,
Yes.
we tie it to their license. Right, as the supervisor, they're tied to the license,
Yeah.
so it automatically in the system, when you click it, it goes to them and you can see that information. So it's a very good idea. We wanna know where to serve them, and also, it wouldn't apply across board, because not everybody has a facility where they practice, because some other people are freelancers and some are not, some are independent contractor, who might wanna be a part of this, opportunity. So I think it's a good suggestion, and there's a simple solution. It's just put a checkbox and that would be something that can go in there. Okay.
yeah, like maybe if not actively working as a freelance and indicate where your work's at. or something like that.
Yeah.
What do we think are mobile facilities? Protecting.
Here.
I think it says that, I don't know what it says, it's been a long time since I read that.
Most states that do apprenticeship require a brick and mortar. If it's not a brick and mortar, then it's not acceptable.
Yeah. Because you have to have all of your tools and supplies and safety, all of that kind of stuff in one area. You can't just be a freelance.
Don't tell us how long it's been that.
But for training purposes,
Our training,
freelance don't have license. This is Tammy. They don't have a place they go. It's home for businesses. So they're not gonna be able to say, oh, well, I'm at this address. So if it's freelance, that ain't gonna happen. We're not gonna get an address.
no, but there's something we have to ask the mobile facility. They have to give us something. I don't remember what it is.
There's something about that outside of business.
It's to standard with OR chapter 331, division 925. That's great.
You can still look at
Physical location of servicing.
So you can look at the Main Street tomorrow. Yeah, I think that's, yeah, you just don't, it's kind of like a mileage sheet.
Yeah.
God, that's so sketchy. I got trained in, my friend Sammy's kitchen. Where do hair? That's where I learned to do
Well,
hair.
that's not legal.
Look at what's happening.
Oh.
I'm just gonna have to get on the way.
Yeah, that's something that we'll look into with our attorney, because like she said, if it doesn't specifically call it out in the bill, sometimes it's hard for us to pull it out of thin air, but we'll speak with her and get her thoughts.
If it's possible to require a brick and mortar.
Yeah, we'll see if if we can do that. Any other requirements for the supervisor? Okay. Where would you guys like to move to next?
Still sticking with supervisor, we're not done with them yet.
Just wanna make sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Do you guys have other things that you would like to add to the requirements?
What we need to add, this is Carrie Reed. My recommendation is that they need proof of the theory and knowledge. I don't know how it would come about. I don't know what the answer is, but I do believe that there needs some sort of a verification, authorization, understanding of the theory.
This is Tammy, they literally hold a license in a field of practice. They have proved to us that they do that, they pass the test. I'm not sure what else you would want from that. They've had 5 years, they've held the license for 5 years. I don't know if there's any way that, what would we ask them? I mean, that we wouldn't ask, I just don't know what we would ask of them to prove, and they've already proven it, the license, and that's what the legislature said, the proof.
Tina.
Margaret, go ahead.
Last week we discussed potentially an online portal where the supervisor could take a refresher course in what is required, such as go through briefly in a smaller way than what's required of the students in a school. They could just take like a refresher course on the theory and what they're overseeing in their trainee. Does everybody remember that? We discussed that last week.
Yeah.
So what kinds of things would you guys like to see as part of the potential supervisor refresher course?
Just go over what is, have a course where they're going to refresh what the student needs to know when they're taking their theory classes. If you're setting up an online modules for the trainee, then the supervisor could have a small mini course, if you will, on what that's going to look like and what they're looking for, such as the sanitation, such as in chemistry, such physiology. Does that make sense?
And is this something that you recommend HLO put together, or do you have outside organizations that have something that could be used?
Well, currently both Milady and Pivot Point have these modules set up. And at the schools I worked at, the students logged in and they took the classes. We would go over it. So you could use either Milady or Pivot Point, but I don't think they provided they just gave us little suggestions, Milady and Pivot Point, of what the teachers could give. But I would think HLO could set it up.
Tina?
Yeah, a couple of things. And Karen might be able to answer this, but during COVID, a lot of students were taking their courses, their theory stuff online. How did you guys determine that that was the person taking it? Or how did you determine that it actually happened? Any teachers on here? Did you guys let your students during COVID take their theory courses online? Did they give you a certificate when they got done?
Yes, this is Carrie Weed. So distance learning is done live with an instructor. It's not just logging in, but it was done live with like a Zoom call type of thing. That was going through the chapter type of stuff. So there could be, say a 4-hour class that reviews chemistry, electricity, anatomy, safety and sanitation, skin structure, skin disease disorder, things like that from a theory point of view. But it was with a live instructor going through it to verify that they were in attendance, that their hours were there, and they were comprehensive and not asleep and that kind of stuff.
Okay, so
Yeah.
do they still have those courses?
Yes, you do.
Okay, I think there's your guys' answer on that.
We call it orientation. Foundations.
Brianna, go ahead.
Yeah, Margaret keeps saying kind of what I'm thinking along the lines. If we're thinking equality and making sure everybody's at the same standard, the only thing really that makes sense is that HLO facilitates an online portion of the foundations and theories for them to take. In my, as a hopeful supervisor, thought process would be, if they apply through the state, they get they get accepted, they do their work through the state of the theory, and they're coming to me with that, then you're on the hands-on. And I would also like to add that I think when I went to school, nobody that taught me had been in the field for 10 to 15 years. They had been at a school. So I do think they have the advantage of coming into a salon that's operating. And you also have, somebody said something about if they pick a supervisor and the supervisor's bad. I think we're talking rural areas. So we're talking about they're going to know who they're picking. They're going to know the salon they work at. I feel like the person going into it is probably going to be more aware of what they're getting than they would ever be aware of walking into a school.
Well, I think it's something to consider if you're gonna be creating, say, these training modules for the foundations for each field of practice, somebody has to pay for that. So in thinking about creating those, you have to keep them up, you have to constantly be updating them. Someone has to charge that fee, and that's gonna go to that original stream.
Well, see, I would think that the testing part of it, the foundation part, could go to the state. If the state's facilitating the test, if they're putting together the test and they're giving the work, why wouldn't they be able to, why wouldn't that be a fee just like we pay when we go get our licensing?
Right, that's the board fee, and it's, if you, as a practitioner, you pay a fee for us to do certain things, to renew your license and
right,
maintain regulation, all those things. So it's not an HLO fee, it is an HLO fee, but it's what pays for the board to operate.
Right,
So
so
if we're keeping track and creating and maintaining training, foundation training, whatever you guys want to call it, modules for each field of practice, that has to be maintained, redone. There are studies you have to relook at every certain amount of time. You got to convene another committee every 2 or 3 years. All those fees have to be, all that money has to be transferred to someone to pay for it. Can't just be HLO pays for it. HLO doesn't actually have any money.
okay, so the Board of Cosmetology, sorry,
Right.
the wrong.
Board is made up of each
But
practice.
If you just paid that, like that portion, they would pay for that, say, class, make it a class fee, even if it's $2,000 that goes to the board of cosmetology.
You
Like,
have the original certificate holder pay a fee for the modules to.
yes, yes.
Derek, this is Tammy, and I know you got a couple people with their hands up, but aren't we talking about the trainer right now, not the trainee? So I want to make sure we stay with worrying about whether they need to do these tests, which I think they don't. But anyway.
Supervisor training.
I guess I was taking it back to the supervisor because I want them to already know the foundation by the time they get to me. So then I, as a supervisor, would like somebody just said, like basically a cliff notes of what are the key things that need to be taught. But as a supervisor, I'm moving forward. I'm doing the hands-on stuff because they're gonna, for the most part, have already done their training on theory and foundation. And now I'm going to be the hands-on and I'm going to hit the spots that are highlighted. I just think day to day, a lot of it we don't even realize we do. Because it's just built in to your brain that you're doing it. So if you have a cliff notes of what am I supposed to go over? Because they've already learned the theory. So now I want like cliff notes of, okay, make sure I go over X, Y, and Z. And then I'm keeping track of all of it, if that makes sense.
Jessica?
You're really asking a supervisor. I mean, it's gonna be a big process. I don't think you're gonna have a flood of people that want to be a supervisor.
Yeah,
Jessica?
I guess my question is, when you become an instructor at a school, do you have to take a test to see your knowledge before you can become an instructor?
No.
You go to have instructor training program.
Or a member of 1 year experience.
It's two.
Ray, go ahead.
One thing that I think we should consider, because I know we've talked about creating these training modules for the supervisor, but one thing which would prove for the state to house this information is that I don't think your curriculum providers like Pivot Point or Milady are going to give licenses out to just individual stylists to get educational material to train their trainees. So
That was just a suggestion, just threw it out there, not when I was asked.
But I think that the state should house all of the training modules since they take from all curriculum to create our licensing examinations anyway. And then that way it's not up to the salon supervisor to try to seek out these educational materials to train their trainees.
Peanut, go ahead. Peanut, go ahead.
Yeah, my question was the same as Jessica's. Do instructors that only have to be licensed 2 years to become an instructor, do they have to take courses to become an instructor?
Who wants to answer that? Who's an instructor?
There's no tests or no.
So I guess my question would be, then why would we have somebody that's working out in the field take any time of test if they already have been licensed for X amount of years, they have no disciplinary action, and they're working?
Go Karen real quick and then
Yeah.
Karen, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to clarify the optional teacher training program for cosmetology that HEC has rules regarding. The content of that is really focused on teaching as opposed to the content. So, in that respect, you're not verifying that a potential teacher, knows their stuff related to hair or nails or whatever field, but it is more geared, although you can incorporate some of those things, it's more geared to fundamentals to teach. And Tina, you had just said something and it really kind of rang true to me. Maybe, although it's not required to be a registered teacher at a licensed school, that you have this teacher training. I do, one reason you might want a little bit more of a requirement potentially is because at least the school teachers, we are looking and verifying their work experience, that it was in the fields they would be teaching. We verify their, education, their license, all of that. And that might not be occurring in this situation. So you might want something a little more, but you're right. I don't know necessarily that you should require a whole bunch more, but there is another level at this for school teachers with the HEC, checking, verifying different things.
So Karen, how do you guys verify that information on your end?
Well, we look at they are supposed to fill out information on the registration form documenting their work experience. They provide transcripts documenting their education and training. They can have up to a year of education or work experience that counts towards the 2-year requirement of working under a license. And then we will often sometimes verify the employer. They list their employers. We will oftentimes verify what they did, that they were indeed, um, coloring hair or, providing barbering services or whatever it may be.
This is Carrie. On the instructor application, an instructor has to put down, they have to put a resume, they have to put their high school transcripts or diploma, is that right? And their license from their licensure, right? But don't they have to have high school transcripts on there?
Yeah, they need to provide proof of high school graduation or a GED or post-secondary transcripts that, that would normally require you to have graduated from high school.
But then their license is hung under a licensed school. So an instructor can't just be an
Their
instructor.
registration. Their
registration.
Yeah.
Right, their registration has to be under a specific licensed school. You
Yes.
can't just have an instructor license without having it at a specific facility.
Margaret, go ahead.
Oh, I almost forgot. I've been waiting so long. Let's see. Sorry. When I participated as a salon owner in the first apprentice program, I took a 1-day course. So somebody referred to it as getting Cliff Notes, and it was like that. And that's all I'm proposing for the supervisor is just a refresher course of going through those things. And it doesn't have to be signing up with Milady or Pivot Point. But this speaks also to the other thing that we talked about last week, rather, that we create a contact network for the trainee as well as the supervisor so they can discuss various problems or needs they might have. Does anybody remember that?
Yeah.
I remember it.
Okay. I just think that's a good idea. I didn't get a lot. I got a little bit of support, and I think support is necessary in this type of program.
And I just want to reiterate, we've got, I believe, at least 4 different training type programs with all of our various professions here at the HLO. I believe only one of them requires additional training. So every other supervisor, you're licensed for X number of years, you're deemed eligible or educated enough to be that person's supervisor.
What program was it?
Body piercing, electrology, hearing aid specialist, all the supervisors do not require extra education. If you want to be a, what they call a preceptor or supervisor for a nursing home administrator, you have to take a 40-hour training course. So that is the volume of information that a nursing home administrator needs to know is a lot. So I think that's one of the requirements, or one of the reasons why they required it.
And this is Carrie. How do they get that?
So there is there's 2 organizations in Oregon that offer an approved training.
Oh.
So it would be a third party.
Oh.
And you also, this is Tina, you also have to have degrees.
Right, yeah, there's a level of education, but once you obtain the initial licensure, if you want to become a preceptor in that field, then you would take that 40-hour training course. Yeah.
This is Pam Pacheco. As we talked earlier today, on your paperwork here, you did say that you suggested a declaration of responsibility. And I just asked the committee to think about who's going to be the person that wants to do this as a supervisor. They're typically going to be either salon owners or journeymen within the salon environment that's willing to take on an assistant and help them get their provisional licensing. So they're not going to take this step unless they're pretty committed to doing it. So I think that yes, there's always the possibility of not treating it with the respect it's due, but the vast majority of people going into this are going to go in with their eyes open. And the framework that you have set forth here is good framework for them to know, do I remember what my bloodborne pathogen training is? Do I know what my safety and sanitation is? And if I don't, I can go to Milady or I can go to Pivot Point and brush up on it. So if you make too many requirements, it's not going to happen.
Right. So I think that's part of the intent is the bill, again, is to reduce barriers for access. So again, if you're saying, well, there's only one supervisor in this area, but they need to do X, Y, and Z, and they're not willing to do that because it's too much, then you're not really working with the bill. That's just my 2 cents.
So then this is Carrie Weed again. So then, and one of the big topics we talked about last week then is to have an opportunity for not the supervisor to go through some of that like extra 40 hours of training or whatever, but then the student that's in it, they be required to verify their theory of education to know these things. So whether it's, self-taught or a third party or whatever it is, that it doesn't fall on the supervisor to verify that they know it. It falls on the student to verify that they've got it and they understand it.
Yeah. Okay, so in regards to supervisor requirements, do we feel like we've kind of come to a decision, or do we still potentially want to look at training options for them?
This is Pam Pacheco. The things I have, 5 years, no problem with license, bloodborne training, background check, declaration of responsibility for apprentice, and a facility license. That's a lot. I think that's be good.
Okay. So I think I'm kind of at a good stopping point. Does anyone feel like they want to take a break? Okay. How about we come back at noon? We can give people time to go bathroom, get some food if they want. So we will see everybody back in a half an hour.
Not my little.
All right, welcome back, everybody. So I just want to let everybody know that we're probably going to end the meeting sooner than 2:30. I think would be a good stopping point. We're gonna just kind of reconfirm a few things, pick some future meeting dates, and then probably call it good for the day. Reason being is we're going to get some legal advice, so potentially we would like to get that back before we continue to make decisions. That way, if legal advice does not respond with what we're thinking, then we won't have to completely redo everything. So just kind of touch back over with what we talked about today. So for the requirements for an individual to obtain a provisional certificate, we talked about the bloodborne pathogens, the declaration of responsibility, and some sort of training module, potentially safety and sanitation. And then for the supervisor, it was basically just what is outlined in the bill, having the license for 5 years, and then fingerprints.
We wanted to make sure that if I take the license for 5 years, a current license, like currently active, something, a language that
Yes.
says that you have to be licensed for 5 years, not like 2 years and then you came back. Thank you. The word is consecutive.
Yes, I did make that note.
Exactly.
Let's agree with 5 years. Okay. And so I think the next thing that we will talk about is future meeting dates. So like I said, we want to give some time if we can hear back from our attorney. So we're thinking sometime in February. There's a board of cosmetology meeting on the 5th. So anytime after that, is there a particular day of the week that works best for everybody?
It's like you do every day for me personally.
Okay.
Not the night.
Wednesdays are good. Those are my days.
You like that? I do. I do.
The 16th is the holiday.
Are we going away from Mondays? Did I miss?
Yes, please.
Did you say Wednesday, Sammy?
Wednesdays, right?
Yeah, do Wednesdays in general work for people?
No.
Make it work.
No. Okay.
No.
No.
Oh, man, on both days,
So do you guys want to stick with Mondays? They seem to be working okay. And then if something comes up, we can change days later.
That's preferred.
All right.
Yes.
Right there.
We have a board meeting on the 9th, February 9th. We wanted to do,
You see what happens when you pick a Monday? Other board meetings happen on Mondays.
and then
Wednesdays.
holidays.
I'm not old.
Oh, so board meeting starts at 10 or 9?
I believe it's 9 o'clock.
9
on the
o'clock.
6th.
Wait, you said,
Oh, sorry.
Nine.
There's a cosmetology board meeting on February 6th, starting at 9 o'clock.
Oh,
six, I thought you said
not
that
the night?
Monday.
It's at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. It's usually 10.
On the
Okay.
On
One of those days.
I can't read my own writing.
It's the 5th.
It's the 5th.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
Thursday,
That's-
February 5th.
Okay.
Okay, board meeting on
All right, how's the 23rd of February?
Board meeting.
board meeting, yeah.
How beautiful. I'm not eating that.
So it looks like essentially all the Mondays in February are booked for the HLO.
What about Wednesday?
Wednesdays are open because they're my day.
There is a board meeting.
That board does have Wednesdays.
Wednesday, the 18th. Does that work?
You can have the party with that. You can call me. I can totally call me.
Oh,
Outside of the country.
3 in the morning. your
We
time.
outside of the country.
This is true. I like you. You know time to, yes.
Okay, so currently the next meeting we're gonna schedule for Wednesday, February 18th at 9:30 a.m. And I will send out a reminder, a calendar invite. Okay, now I think move on to public comments.
You want to pick another one more committee meeting?
Yeah, we can, if you guys want to pick another one
Might as
after
well.
that, okay.
Easy.
Question, sorry, what's the timeline for the 18th? Starting at 9:30 till when?
Starting at 9:30, 2:30 would be the max endpoint. We might get done earlier
Thank you.
than that. Then,
That's March 11th or 18th.
Sure, those are saved for this.
You do 2 18s since it's both on the same day.
yeah, and let's do the second meeting, Wednesday, March 18th at 9:30. Again, we will send out invites for both of those.
Yeah.
Right, and then.
Yeah, that will give us some time.
That,
What is this is scary. What is that you're looking into specifically legality wise?
Oh, I was
One
supposed to
thing.
do that.
Oh.
background checks.
Yeah. And the board requires a person who supervises the minor to have a background check. And the board requires supervisor be licensed for 5 out of the last 7 years. 4 or 5 years for the application. The other board require training and supervision. License and facility work in order. Can the board require a person who, I think we took it off the table. Or supervisor to take an exam. Training.
Yeah, it looks like we kind of settled on no additional training for the supervisor as of right now. That might come back around later, but.
I think it'll be a question asked if we're putting a list of questions out there.
Great,
Might be asked.
You got it. That way, if you guys do decide that's a route you want to go, then. well,
You got the answer. Or I know we can't.
All right, do public and interested parties feedback. At this time, the Cosmetology Qualifications Committee will hear public and interested parties feedback. Public comment is limited to matters listed on the meeting agenda or topics relevant to what this committee has statutory authority to regulate. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes and will not be allowed if they're disruptive to the committee's conduct of its business. If you're called on to comment, HLO staff will request the public member to unmute themselves. HLO reserves the right to end a person's comment early and have HLO staff mute the public member if the comment does not pertain to matters listed on the meeting agenda or topics relevant to what this committee has authority to regulate. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment? And if so, please raise your hand or use the Zoom raise hand feature and wait to be acknowledged. Right here.
And give me emails.
All right. Once or twice. All right, and I guess we'll move to adjourn the meeting. So the Cosmetology Qualifications Committee meeting is adjourned at 12:10 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. We will reconvene in February and have more information for you.